City of Dolton, you've made some huge mistakes in the past, but now you got a little W under your belt. What are you going to do? Capitalize on that or fall back flat on your face? Well, after I slap you around a little bit in this video, maybe you'll increase your odds of winning the war. Let's go political. Greetings, everybody. This is Carlton Flowers with the Go Political channel, and tonight we're going to go there. Yeah, we're going to go there. I am going to be discussing the situation in Dolton, Illinois, where a certain mayor, a dictatorial mayor, is in place, and there is a battle that is going on where we previously had a little bit of a win. Check out my last video if you want to see what that is all about. So we had a little glimmer of hope, a little battle that was won. But can you win the war? That's my question for you, City of Dolton. Can you win the war? Now, if you're going to win the war, there are certain facts that you must come to grips with, and you must be armed and ready to win a lot more battles, one at a time. Okay, so let me give you the executive summary of what this video is going to entail. First, we're going to go over some sobering realizations. Then we're going to have a look at some of the techniques that have been used against you for the past couple of years. Then we're going to move on and consider some of your major mistakes. Mistakes that, in fact, you are still making right now today. And then we're going to talk about a game plan that can help you win the war. All right. Well, thanks for joining me on this late night edition. And I tell you what, I'm just going to speak from the heart, and I'm not going to pull any punches. So it might not be comfortable to hear all about what I'm going to throw in your face. But we're going to start off with some realizations. I talked about some of these things in the first video that I did. We're going to revisit it. We're going to revisit it tonight, but in a more sobering way where I'm not going to pull any punches. So, you invited a sociopathic narcissist into office to rule over you and all the citizens of the kingdom of Dolton. Now what? That's the $100 question, isn't it? Well, generally speaking, it's your own fault that you let this monster into office. Yeah, I said it. Monster. Now, for those of you watching that don't live there, that sounds shocking. To the people that live in the city of Dolton, that doesn't sound shocking because you are firsthand dealing with the monster who shall not be named. So, actually, what do? You need to, first of all, repent of your sins for putting that monster into office, okay? And forgive yourself. You're going to have to admit the guilt, repent, okay? Give yourself some forgiveness and then move on. Now, it might have been a good idea at the time, but looking back, of course, hindsight is always 20/20. And I don't know what your reasons were, because you had all the evidence to know that it probably wasn't a good idea. But I'm thinking it had something to do with DEI or the black on black code. The black code. We've got a single black woman, all right? So this would be a great noble thing to put a single black woman in office. But the only problem is you didn't vet her. Now, I'm not against DEI. In fact, I am an expert. I've been doing diversity training for about 30 years. Before it became DEI, it was just diversity. It wasn't equity, okay? It was just diversity. But you know what? DEI comes with a price. It's like rolling the dice. Sometimes you're going to shoot craps. So you rolled the dice and thought it was a great idea to put a single black woman into office for that reason, because it would look good, make you guys seem like you're doing the noble thing. You rolled those dice and you turned up Tiffany Henyard. Woo. Wow. And that's just how it goes, okay? Sometimes it works out and sometimes it does not. You just happen to be one of the worst living examples of DEI gone wrong, if that was your reason for putting her into office, because I don't tend to find any other reasons of why any of you would have put her into office. So another interesting thing that, in general, that I realize that you probably realize is that she learned all her crooked ways from the previous mayor. Now, shout out and full credit to the amazing YouTube creator, Dela Crem Dela, who did a video exposing Tiffany Henyard as a trustee, lambasting and busting the chops of the previous mayor, much in the same way that the current trustees are busting her chops. But what is most interesting is that these exact things that she was busting the chops of the previous mayor are the things that she's doing right now, only on a much higher level. So she learned how to play 3-card Monty. You know what 3-card Monty is? Look it up. You see people playing 3-card Monty in the city a lot. It's a hustle. So she learned that hustle and then she scaled it up. But this was exposed in an outstanding video done by Dela Crem Dela, who dug up these videos from the archives. She must be commended for all of the hard work and digging through all those old videos to find this video evidence and present it in such a fantastic manner that she did. I'm wondering if she missed her calling as an investigator. She could be the head of the FBI with the skills that she has in digging up this information and displaying it for all the world to see. Okay, so she used to berate the former mayor, and now she's doing the same things. What a devil! What a devil! And you all are being played for fools. I mean, it's plain evil. It's just evil. And you know what? Speaking of evil, that kind of makes me think of something. A certain word comes to mind, and that word is a name, and it is Satan. Satan. You think of a half man, half goat, hooves, horns, prancing around out in the dark with the red eyes, kind of like the depiction that I gave of the mayor in the last video. But is there really a horned half goat monster prancing around out in the woods? Probably not. I'm a skeptic. I've never seen a half man, half monster, Satan, prancing around out there. But what about the concept of Satan? Now, stick with me. You're going to see where I'm going here. Just hang with me. I promise you. This will be good. Reason I'm talking about Satan here is because the concept of Satan is because we can draw some comparisons between the concept of Satan and a narcissist, especially one on the sociopathic level. All right? That's a descriptive name. What are some other names of Satan? There are other descriptive names and descriptors. Some of the names include Lucifer, Beelzebub, the Antichrist, a demon, a serpent, the angel of darkness, Belial. How about the descriptors? Let's talk about a few descriptors. The great deceiver, the father of lies, the accuser, the tempter, the evil one, the dragon, think fire, coming out of the dragon's mouth, burning your face off, right? How about the great manipulator? Now, is it a coincidence? Is it any coincidence at all that these words also describe a narcissist? Think about that. So we have the folklore or biblical version of Satan, which is a concept, but it perfectly matches the description of a real-life human being who is a narcissist. Now, why do I bring this up? Here's the reason why I'm bringing this up for you, people of Dolton, residents and leadership. It's because you need to identify exactly what you are dealing with, because you kind of don't know what you're dealing with. And this takes it to a level where it opens up your eyes and makes you realize exactly what you're dealing with. Something on the order of the concept of Satan. Okay? Now, let's identify some things with your Satan, concept of Satan individual, your narcissist who is in a certain position of control. This is a person who, from my observation and watching all your videos along with the world, oh boy, I tell you, the world is watching Dolton. Here you've got a person who can lie with a straight face, with passion. Here you've got a person capable of guilt shaming in the drop of a hat. That's the word of the day. I'll give you the definition in a minute. You have a person who can remain unaffected by scolding or being called out. Ooh, that's a good one. You got a person who can flip any accusation, throw it back in your face, and make people believe that it's real. You got a person who has mastered control of your emotions. Think puppeteer, pulling the strings, but you're the puppet. She's pulling the strings. She or he. We're not talking about anyone in particular. This is just generic, right? Okay, what else? You're dealing with a person who knows exactly how to get you triggered. She knows how to get your goat. Look up on Google. Look up on Google about what the effect a goat has on a horse and what happens when you steal the goat before a big race. Look that up. You're dealing with a person who is a known prior criminal. Later on, we might talk about prison mentality. Okay? You're dealing with a person who, wow, all of the above rolled up into one big ball of a demon of a person. Okay, so back to the word of the day, guilt shaming. Let me read you this realization, and then we're going to summarize, generalize the realizations, and then we'll move on. Here's the definition of guilt shaming. Guilt shaming refers to a situation where someone intentionally or unintentionally uses guilt as a tool to manipulate or control another person. It involves making someone feel guilty for their actions, choices, or behaviors, often with the aim of influencing their behavior or eliciting a specific response. Unlike healthy guilt, which arises from genuine remorse, or wrongdoing, guilt shaming can be emotionally harmful and coercive. It may involve tactics such as emphasizing past mistakes, exaggerating consequences, or using emotional pressure to achieve a desired outcome. Interesting, huh? All right, back to realizations. Let's summarize this. Okay? You are dealing with a person who lives in a fantasy world, and she draws you into her fantasy world employing certain methods. We'll get into that later. You are dealing with a person who more than likely suffered intense childhood trauma. Watch the first video. I've already gone into all the details of that. She might be ignorant, and I'm talking ghetto, hood, rat, ignorant. Okay? But she is brilliant in terms of prison mentality. You know, when you hear certain words that a person uses, you know that they are operating under prison mentality. One word which comes from prison culture is the term snitch. As soon as that word comes out of someone's mouth, that's it. I'm not dealing with you as a normal, educated, intelligent human being. I know I'm dealing with a person who is stuck inside of a prison mentality and culture. All right, moving right along. She feeds off of emotions, both positive and negative. I love y'all and ain't nothing y'all can do about it. She cannot handle being ignored or rendered as insignificant. She must be adored and worshiped and cannot be challenged. You cannot fall into her convoluted traps or you will lose. All right, let's move on and talk about some of these techniques that are being employed against you. And then I'm going to tell a couple stories, a couple gaslighting stories that you might find interesting. So the techniques that I have observed that are being used against you. And these are amazing. The first one is the admonishment of residents, or, just berating and bashing the residents for listening to factual stories that expose the corruption. And you admonish them for not fact checking. She always says that. Y'all ain't fact checking. Okay? Even though, in reality, if you did the fact checking, you'd find all of the accusations or allegations to be true. But remember, we're dealing in fantasy land, because a person that lives in reality who knows they're lying wouldn't tell someone to fact check, because they'll arrive at a conclusion that they are caught in a lie. But a narcissist can go so far as to admonish you for fact checking with such a straight face that you'll doubt what you even believe to be reality. When attacked, she will flip it, say the opposite, accuse you of it, and attack you back. Example, the secret squirrel meetings. Y'all done had a secret squirrel meeting. And y'all know that wrong and that's illegal. Having secret squirrel meetings, and all the citizens and residents need to know about how dirty y'all are, how y'all breaking the law. That was uncanny. To actually hold an illegal meeting and then turn around, throw it back in your face, and accuse you of doing the same thing. And then she actually owns it, says it convincingly to the point where she owns it, takes it away from you, and then beats you with it upside your head. Guilt shaming. Playing the victim. By the way, victim, we're going to get into that later. So using the guilt shaming, of course, you saw my black on black video. Y'all black, y'all feeding and attacking on a single black woman in power. That is guilt shaming. Okay? Playing the victim. Knowing good and well she's not the victim, but that's gaslighting. Claiming she got all the receipts, but you got to get them receipts on her podcast that might be up one day and down the next. But then you notice that we're wanting the credit card receipts, right? Okay. Then you get on the podcast, she's giving receipts for different stories that have nothing to do with what's being demanded over here. That is a deception tactic. That's a technique being used against you. It draws attention to the wrong thing. It's a diversion. Proclaiming all negative news and derogatory allegations or alizations are fake news. I had mentioned in the last video, one of the previous videos, that she steals the word fake news from Donald Trump. Donald J. Trump, fake news, fake news. But she doesn't even know how to use it in the right way. She uses fake news like a 6-year-old would, in a very childish manner. How about pretending that there is a grand conspiracy out there that's working against her, twisting the truth? She's constantly accusing the news media of partaking in a grand conspiracy that's set up against her just because she's a single black woman in power. So those are just some of the techniques. Now let me tell a couple stories from childhood that kind of showcase similar techniques of gaslighting. And then you think about these stories and how it relates to what you're going through right now. I remember once when I was in maybe 10th grade and I had a friend who was in the 9th grade, and we were going on a church trip. And we were on the church bus and I was sitting on the first row in the 3 rows of seats in the van. And behind me was my friend and his 2 younger brothers. And then I'm sitting in a row with 2 or 3 other people. And so one of the younger brothers of my friend, he had issues. We'll just say that. Lots of childhood trauma. And so Steve, who's a great friend of mine now, and he's grown up and matured. Steve's sitting behind me. And so he brings it upon himself. He got the crazy idea that he was going to jack slap me in the back of the head. I mean, he must have reached back to the sun, comes up and smacks me in the back of the head. I mean hard, and it sounded off. And I turn around real quick and I'm like, Steve, what are you doing? He looks at me like, what are you talking about? I was like, shut up, man. Quit slapping me. And he goes, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't do anything. So then I turn around and all of a sudden, I get smacked in the back of the head again. It's even harder. I turn around and now I'm starting to get mad. I'm like, Steve, cut it out. At the time, he's only in like 5th, 6th grade, but he was a big kid. And so he starts to get a little angry. What are you talking about? I didn't do anything. So I turn around, I'm like, good God. And I'm wanting my buddy to control his little brother. So then all of a sudden, the biggest smack of all. I mean, I almost saw stars on this one the 3rd time. I turned around and I was so mad. I was like, cut it out, Steve. Quit smacking me in the head. And Steve got irate. What are you talking about? I didn't do anything. It wasn't me. And he raged to the point where I felt guilty. I felt guilty for accusing him, even though I knew he did it, because I knew it wasn't my friend and it wasn't the other brother who was the baby at the time. He was very small and had no capability of hitting me that hard. Neither was it anyone in the row of seats behind him. It was obvious that he had done it, but through his outrage, he was outraged and incensed that I would accuse him of doing something so heinously wrong, so evil. When I was in maybe 11th grade, 10th or 11th grade, I think it was still high school, around the same time, I used to ride the bus. Ride the bus home to a small town, a country town outside of the capital city where I lived. And at that time, there were a bunch of Caucasians that were not very, we'll just say they weren't polite to black people. So when I grew up here in junior high and high school, it was like living in Selma, Alabama during the 60s. Okay? Lots of racism. All right? So I used to sit on the bus and they would hurtle names at me. And I got called everything under the sun. Saucer lips, porch monkey, Brillo head, you name it. The reveling just went on and on and on day after day until a point where it got really bad and they started throwing things at me and one person even spit on me. So I told my older brother, who told all of our black friends, they're all juniors and seniors, football players. And so they made a plan. They're going to storm the bus and they're going to beat up all the guys on the back of the bus that are reveling me. So they come outside to the bus. I'm sitting on the bus. They're going in, calling me names. And all of a sudden, here comes the whole crew from the football team ready to storm the bus. And the bus driver smartly slammed the door shut before they got on the bus. So my brother and friends proceeded to the back of the bus and started pounding on the side of the bus, jumping up and trying to crawl up through the windows while hurling threats at the people who were mistreating me. Now, all of them sat back there and their eyes were so big, their eyeballs could have fallen out the sockets. They were crapping their pants. So once the melee died down, the principal walked out. Actually, he settled them down. And then he got on the bus. And the principal was a white man, Dr. Pemberton. He was a good man, Caucasian, but had the good sense to know the difference between right and wrong and the wrongs of racism. Well, he stepped on that bus and he proceeded to cuss out these kids on the back of the bus. And he was the most well-spoken, educated man, godly man that I have ever known. But there were a few cuss words interlaced in the bashing that he gave those hillbillies on the back of the bus. And he said, if I hear one more instance of this black crap going on, not a great choice of words, I will expel each and every one of you, and you will never set foot on these school grounds again. So after the principal left, the very people who were calling me the names approached me. Carlton, what was going on? What happened? Why was the principal so mad? Why are all those people trying to jump on the bus? Who is doing something to you? Who was calling you names? Who are the people that were doing it? The same ones that were causing the problem, calling me those racist names. Think about that. All right, let's move to the next section. Let's talk about mistakes. The mistakes that you have made. All right? The mistakes that you have made. Not the one I already mentioned. We already covered the one. You put this monster in office in the first place. Y'all helped her get in office in the first place. No, we're going to talk about some other mistakes. One mistake that I noticed on the April Fool's Day of Reckoning. The residents. Big mistake, big mistake, big mistake. Number one, you got residents outside chanting and yelling and trying to get in the door, and they were upset and in their emotions. If you watched the first video, you know that the narcissist feeds on negative emotions. Supercharged with emotional energy, trying to chant, trying to make a difference and express their anger and concern to the mayor. In addition to the residents who spoke out, Let's think about this. You've got residents speaking on the mic who are angry. One was yelling, had every right to yell. Think about the resident who had cancer yelling on that mic, and they were trying to turn the mic down, by the way. Calling out the mayor, yelling at the mayor, angry as all get out, mad as a beet, screaming. Supercharged emotional energy, which does what? It feeds the demon. Major mistake. The crowd outside chanting, possibly being led by antagonists. I mean, if you watched Dela Crem Dela's channel or Shane and his channel, you will see that certain antagonists or plants were exposed. Grifters who come to take advantage of the situation for selfish gain. So that's another way that this actually hurt. It was a hindrance. It did not help. That's what happens when you allow grifters coming in to help a situation and they're standing in the front of the crowd. I got a great kick out of watching some of that video coverage. Here's another major mistake you've made. I talked about this in the last video. You're still openly clinging to political parties. Why? I don't know. Now, I was bashing. I was calling out the Democrats. But Democrats and Republicans, they're political parties. And the majority of politicians are corrupt. They use the same tactics. This two-party system really is put in place to keep you people under control while they hog up all of the wealth and control the population. You see, here's the thing. These political parties open up avenues for power, and they attract demons. Let me take that back. They attract people who turn into demons because money and power corrupts. Now, I want you to think about that. Anyone who is fighting the power and then you get the power, I want you to remember what I just said. Money and power corrupts. We'll get more into that in the next video. Here's another mistake. Crying victim. Big mistake. Major mistake. Getting on television saying, somebody needs to save Dolton. We're the poor victims. That was a big mistake. You cannot play the victim. You can't do it, especially not at this point. Why? It's because a certain person beat you to the punch and mastered this tactic and owns it. First one to own it and master it wins the game. You can't use it. You're second in line. Outsiders looking in can be fooled, and they can sympathize with the wrong person. You know what? I was once told that you should never argue with a fool. And the reason is that bystanders might not be able to tell which one the fool is. Think about that. Crying victim will not get you anywhere. You have to figure this one out yourself. And the first thing you must say is that we can do it. You're going to have to go, Obama. Yes, we can. We can do it. You better put on your Barack Obama hat right now. Start utilizing his famous chant. Yes, we can. Yeah, you can get out of this. You don't need saving because you are not victims. Anything you put your mind to, you can accomplish. Guaranteed. All right. But there's some problems. There's some problems that we're facing. What are those problems? Well, here's one big problem. the percentage of people in the village who actually care. You got very low voter turnout. Kind of looks like, 20,000 residents, and you get maybe a couple thousand people coming out to vote, if that. You're looking at 5 to 10% voter turnout? You got a high rate of apathy amongst the residents of your village, and that is a problem. Another problem is the surprising amount of people that are willing to be bought for a price by corrupt individuals. The worst would be the police department. That's a problem. I have a solution to that in another video, and you're going to have to ask me to share it because it is a ground-breaking, earth-shattering idea that can empower you even though you're not in control of the police force and don't have the guns. Another problem. Human nature. People want to live through the eyes of the corrupt queen. They'll sit around and pay taxes and get fined out the yazoo for parking violations, and then turn around and you see ignorant people like that simp with the braids coming up to the mic in a town meeting stating that, hey, other politicians have a couple of steak dinners and they don't have a problem with it. You know why? It's because we live in the Kardashian age. We live in the rich ghetto housewives of Atlanta age, where people live their lives vicariously through watching the Kardashians. We sit up and watch this stuff, which supports it, reinforces it, allows them to make more revenue because they generate advertisement income, right? Well, you got the same thing going on right there. You have dumb people willing to be robbed blind, but then they enjoy watching the leader live the lifestyles of the rich and famous. That's a problem. Empowerment is the solution, but we're not going to talk about that in this video. That's for another video, and you will have to ask me to give you that one. Another problem. Giving the mayor what she wants. Negative energy, because she flips it every single time. I'm so shocked. That residents haven't figured that out yet. That you can talk about, scream at her in her face about something that no decent human being who has a soul could allow to be spoken without responding. And what does she do? Pretend you're not even there. You have to rewind and go back upstairs and reread the Satan section. Okay, another problem that you have is the black on black code is working against you. And Andrew Holmes, he pulled the black on black code out on you, and it worked. You've got a state attorney general or prosecuting attorney, whatever she is. Attorney general, I can't remember. The black on black code and the black woman code is just allowing this person to act and to stop this individual from bankrupting the city. The black on black code is working against you. You know what the honest truth is? People aren't worried about what your mayor is doing to you guys because it's black on black. They're more worried about George Floyd. White cops killing black people. That's what gets the media attention, the real media attention and the sympathy, okay? That's what causes the marches. Think about how many people that you had show up at that demonstration. And then think about how many people rioted in St. Louis up the road from me back in, 2014? Think about what happened after George Floyd died. How many people were involved in that protest and riot? Think about what happened in Baltimore and the numbers that showed up for that demonstration. Why? Well, because it's white on black. People aren't concerned with your black on black problem, so that is a problem for you. So black people aren't concerned with the destruction coming from black people. We might have 10,000 times more murders of black on black than white on black, but we're only concerned if other people do us wrong, specifically white people. That's a whole nother topic for another day, but we're going to move on to what to do. What do you do? Where do you go from this point? Well, 1, you go back and you study my first video when I was talking nice and being all diplomatic. 2, you create a grassroots action plan to get the community involved. I call it strategic mass influence. That's my coined term that I teach in leadership training classes. You need to create something of your own, a grassroots action plan to get the people of your community off their butts, to cancel this apathy and start getting them to care. 3, you're going to have to increase voter turnout, and that's door to door, person by person. 4, you're going to need to get into office. So yeah, maybe she'll bankrupt you before you get her out of office, and then you get her out, maybe the city's bankrupt. Well, you got to move on. You got to pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Get yourself in office, and then start some education programs, because you have a lot of ignorant people that live in your community. There are certain things that you can teach that will turn that community upside down and set it on fire in a good way and not in a bad way. So you need to employ some strategic mass influence methods and get people organized and standing up and taking action. Here's another good one, something that you can do right now. And I mentioned this in that first video. You need to employ narcissistic battle tactics, because you elected a monster, a hood rat, a sociopathic narcissist, and you're not fighting the battle in the right way. Now you got one win. You finally got one little W because you did something right. You didn't feed into the nonsense. But see, when you start to learn strategy for dealing with monsters like this, you start learning things like truth weaving, the gaslighter's gambit. You learn about mirror diplomacy, shadow transparency, reality resilience. Now, the last time I checked, I don't think you guys are employing any of that. I gave you a few ideas. I could give a lot more now, but it would defeat the purpose, because if your adversary were to hear the teachings, they would be educated and would know that it's not going to work against them. Now, some of you might wonder, well, why do I care so much? Well, it's because I'm from Chicago. Now, I'm 56 years old, and I'm a type of person who wants to see black people do better. My father was a social activist. He had a master's plus halfway to his doctorate, lifetime career master musician and teacher, and he helped over 275 people in inner city Chicago, mostly from broken neighborhoods, from folks who did not have college educations. He helped over 275 people get to college with scholarships to earn diplomas, degrees. Yep, he did. He was amazing. I was born in Chicago, and I lived on 99th and LaSalle. Yeah, 15, 20-minute drive up from you Dolton folks. I'm from the hood, baby. I'm from the hood. I just don't talk like a hood rat because I come from educated parents. I was blessed by 2 educated black parents who came from educated black grandparents, but 2 of them only had grade school and high school educations. 2 others had college educations. So that's why I care, because this is all going down right there, smack in the neighborhood that I come from, and I want to see my people doing better. Last but not least, let me give another shout out to Dela Crem Dela for all the fantastic information that she provides and all of the due diligence, hard work, where I can take some of that information that she digs out, and then I can kind of springboard off of that and build off of that information to bring more useful content to you, to all of those who are watching. So also shout out to all of the other content creators who have been following this whole entire debacle. And I've got so much more to come. I'm going to tell you what, we're going to go there. We're going to go political. This is Carlton, and I'm out.